Welcome to episode 14. I'm Luke.
And I am George.
And today we are joined by Rizzle and Nate of NFT42 to discuss their upcoming and imminent launch of InfiNFT, a platform for minting fully on-chain NFTs that's pushing the space forward with new options for artists to mint their works. We discuss this in detail and also cover many topics, including the recent Cryptovoxels meetups, or WIPs, that are organised by Rizzle and Matthew from Cent. This weekend also sees the end of our Moon Gerbil competition, so get your backstories into us by Monday to claim your next non-fun gerbil NFT. We hope you enjoyed the episode.
Welcome to the Non-Fun Gerbils podcast, the show about digitally scarce gerbils, non-fungible assets, and the growing decentralized economy.
Nate and Rizzle, welcome to the show. Nate, you've been on before with Chain Faces, and that was a lot of fun. And Rizzle, we've never had you on, but you are deeply involved in the NFT space. So it would be good to hear about your story and, a little bit first, I suppose, how you found yourself in the space and what you're involved with now.
Sure. My story is very long and strange and could probably be a podcast or a mini series in itself. The brief version is my background in crypto is originally in day trading, and the day trading communities are really horrible in my opinion, and I never really found like a crypto community that wasn't super toxic and shilly until very recently when I stumbled upon the Cent community. And one thing led to another. I started doing a podcast with Matthew on Cent, and we had Jim from NFT42 and Avastars on our podcast. And it was a great episode, and we all like collectively sort of hit it off, and then had the opportunity to meet Jim in person at NFT NYC back in February. And he had some epic rant in the middle of the conference where he like called out Nike and about their product. And I was like, what is this dude's deal? I've never seen anyone so passionate about NFTs in my entire life. And so, went to talk to him after that. And afterwards, I really started learning about his like philosophy, which was basically that anyone who comes into the space, whether you're an artist or a collector, your default assumption is that everything is hosted on the blockchain. And his whole theory is that's the way it should be, not the way we're moving to. And I sort of bought into that because I was not Ethereum native. My background is really in Bitcoin and altcoins, and I didn't know much about the NFT space. So when I was buying NFTs, my assumption was that they were all on the blockchain as well. So I really liked his passion and I really liked his vision. And so for about a month afterwards, I was like, dude, you should just hire me and stop ranting at people on Twitter. I can like deal with all those people and you can get back to what you're really good at. And eventually convinced him to hire me as I'm very proud to be the first full-time hire for the parent company NFT42. But because of that, I've got my hand in like a billion things, including Avastars, InfiNFT, Token Smart, and all of those have spawned their own side things as well. So I'm sort of, we joke around that my official title is sort of the NFT42 point guard. I'm sort of just like the facilitator, like keeping all the moving parts moving and trying to keep the whole team running at the right pace. So that's my my as brief as I could get with my overview.
Cool. And Nate, you created Chain Faces. What are you doing now? I understand that things have changed since then.
Oh man. So yeah, we've really just been dabbling in just a whole shitload of things. So I mean, obviously InfiNFT is sort of the big one that people know about. So after we did the Chain Faces podcast, I talked a little bit about, I can't remember if I specifically said projects that I was working on, but with, Face Golf was something that I teased in the channel a little bit, and really made it pretty far on that one and just have not been able to finish the animation piece because it's just a huge pain. I've got another project that's still sort of top secret, but it's I'll just leave it at that I'm working on. And then I've built some small tools also. So I've got so I built some, data tools for Avastars when it launched. I built this SVG uploader thing that allows you to basically upload SVGs to the chain. I haven't moved it to mainnet yet, but it was something that I played around with a little bit. Another thing that we were working on is this ticketing platform. So, we were at, me and Jim, and a few of us, Alex also, we were in ETH Denver whenever we were trying to check in. It was just it was a mess, honestly. So we kind of look at that as maybe an opportunity of, something that we can sort of get involved with. So that's something I've played around a little bit with on the side as well. So yeah, really just a lot of shit is just been doing everything. The net is really wide right now.
Yeah, there's so much happening and so many new, I suppose, technological advances happening in the NFT space. Is what makes it so exciting.
Definitely.
So do you want to tell us a little bit about InfiNFT? What is it and why?
Of many things, it's hard to pronounce.
Yeah, I was coaching George on how to say it.
we did a full 2-hour coaching session on it. I'm still not quite there, but I'm sure you'll give us the full rundown.
We're all working on it, man.
Yeah, so I think with that, whenever we do the launch party, I'm going to make that something that we emphasize. We got to get the name hammered down. I think the way that Jim says it and the way that I've been saying it, InfiNFT. So I guess you don't have to InfiNFT. It's just InfiNFT.
I think the confusing part is that the N in the infin is capital. It makes you want to pronounce it.
That's good feedback. Maybe we should just lowercase those and okay, yeah, I can see that. No, so yeah, really, it's a minting platform, an NFT minting platform, which isn't really new or unique to the space. It's really the core idea behind it is just to allow somebody who maybe doesn't have a technical background to be able to make their own NFTs. You can already do that, OpenSea, Mintbase. There's a lot of them really. Some of them are more curated and they, whitelist their artist, whereas, some other ones don't have, they're free for all. So for us, whenever we launch the public version, it is going to be more of a free for all. So you'll be able to, anybody will be able to come in and make their own NFTs. So we're doing the official launch party of the alpha tokens, which are going to be the first tokens on Arweave, and they've got their metadata fully stored on chain. So, but we're calling that the launch party, even though it doesn't coincide with a public launch yet. So there's still some things that need to be done on the technical side, although I believe that we've solved all the technical problems. So it's more just getting it done on that for making the public version of it.
And so you mentioned Arweave there, and is that the kind of the core differentiation here between your platform and others, in the sense that you can effectively get more into decentralized storage? Is that the main thrust of the idea?
That I think that is one of the bigger pieces here for sure. So we're still using IPFS as well. So we've got both of those storage solutions for the file itself. Some of the ones even in the alpha tokens were more than 100 megabytes large. There's just really no way to handle that. There's no logical way to put something like that on Ethereum. So we're still outsourcing that, the file itself. The other sort of, I don't know if you'd call it an innovation, but we are putting the metadata directly on the contract. So for the most part, I think, and it makes sense too, because your file or your token is probably as weak as its weakest link. So if you're putting your file on just IPFS, it can make sense to put all your metadata on IPFS as well, because if that fails, then the whole thing is broken anyways. But since we're using sort of the redundant solution with both Arweave and IPFS, our metadata on chain makes a little more sense, because if one gets broken, you still have the other, and you still have all the metadata on chain. And we can, I mean, if we can't trust Ethereum to be here in 20 years, then we're in bad shape anyway, in my opinion. So
yeah, I suppose that was one of my questions actually. So you're storing in the contract two different links. So a link to Arweave and a link to IPFS. Is that right? And so by default, OpenSea will fetch the image or video from Arweave. Is that correct?
So actually, I think that we are storing it on both of them, and the way that you send that stuff over to OpenSea at the moment is you have to write up an API that sort of pulls the information from a contract and then sends that information over to them.
Okay.
That's just the way that it's set up now, because there really wasn't a lot of emphasis on this decentralized storage movement really until some of us started kind of pushing it earlier in the year. So that infrastructure on OpenSea's end at least doesn't really exist to where you can just write your contract and then have them pull that information. So yeah, I mean, I guess where you were going with that question probably is we can change that information. We can point, if say IPFS were to go down, we could point it at Arweave, or if Arweave were to go down, we could point it at IPFS. So really the idea behind the redundant solution is that it's extremely unlikely that you would lose both at the same time. So if you lost one, you would still have time to come up with another redundant storage solution before it was too late, I guess would be kind of the idea.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great idea.
Although ideally we don't lose either of them.
I suppose it's the idea that you can put something, you can mint it, and you can have it there forever, I suppose, is the goal. And it all came about from Jim and creating Avastars and wanting to have everything on chain and pushing for that, which is a great thing. And this is the natural sort of extension from that, I suppose. When we were putting the gerbils together, we sort of had this point of, do we use IPFS and do we put our metadata on there? And we didn't really know what we were doing at the beginning, so we kind of didn't trust ourselves to commit it permanently. So the thing that we made sure of is that we were hosting the metadata at our own domain, so that we have control of if we have to move hosts or anything. And long term, we kind of want to make that more permanent. So actually, it'd be really cool to put the gerbil images on Arweave plus IPFS in the meantime. And then, like, if we need to at some point, move everything over. But yeah, I suppose it's like, if we wanted to move gerbils onto InfiNFT, InfiNFT.
That was great, man.
InfiNFT, that's it. When you're creating something, do you have a contract and everything goes into that contract? Or does the InfiNFT contract create a new contract for each person that uploads something? So, for example, Mintable, they have a contract that creates a contract. So, which means that we can have gerbils, listed on OpenSea as a separate contract. Or yes. Is it more of the super rare kind of approach where everything's minted under the super rare banner, and then so on OpenSea everything is on that contract?
Yeah, so it's actually it's going to be creating we're just calling them artist contracts. So yeah, as an artist or a creator or anybody that wants to use the platform, whenever you first create, and I guess there would be no limit, you could create however many contracts you wanted to. If you wanted to do, say, a collection of these are my 3D pieces or whatever you want to do. But yeah, there'll be individual contracts, and whatever you name that contract and the token name, that's what will ultimately feed over to OpenSea. So I think the link to us at that stage is going to be even more hazy, where you can't really tell that we're sort of doing it more under the hood at that point. But yes, there'll be individual artist contracts, and part of that is really a liability thing. So you don't want people uploading. We don't want to take on the liability of people stealing Mickey Mouse's image and uploading it and selling it. So at this point, they're the owners of their contracts. Yes, we're sort of middlemanning that transaction for them, but we think that at that point, really the liability is going to fall on the uploaders. But yes, to your original point, you would create your own contract. You would upload all the gerbils to it. They would be on Arweave and IPFS. Whatever data that you chose to put in about them would also be fetchable on Ethereum.
Does that affect? It will affect the gas price, I expect. But okay, that changes from minute to minute. But would this be an expensive process to mint, say, a batch of 10, which I think currently it's limited to?
Yeah. So right now, we've been dealing with high gas prices since I have had to deploy any of this stuff to mainnet, and it has been significant. I guess if I give you numbers, it'll give you some context. So I think when I first deployed the alpha contract, it was maybe like 0.1 ETH, which is high, but the gas price was at like 30. So, if the gas price was 3, then it would have been 0.01 ETH. So, really, it's not extremely high. It's higher than what some people are probably used to. If you're going to batch mint 10 tokens, I would expect the price to be probably about at the same level as what deploying the contract would be. So if you're batch minting 10 tokens and the fast gas price is 30, then you're probably looking at maybe 0.1 ETH. It definitely is more expensive than purely just writing just a hash to the token, because, and also really that can vary. If you write an enormously long description, that storing all of those characters is going to add to your storage costs. But I guess as a general rule, it's hard to throw out anything that somebody won't come back to me later and say, "Oh, you said this," but the thing is it depends on the gas prices, depends on what you're putting in the fields. I expect some people might say that, "Oh, this is more expensive than, XYZ platform," but
do you want it to last forever?
Yeah.
That's sort of the cost you're paying. We've just tried to take what was already existing and sort of just make it what we felt like was a little bit more robust. So that really is the core idea behind it, and there's a little bit of a cost that goes with that. Also, we're going to be storing this stuff on Arweave on the creator's behalf, so there's going to be a small cost associated with that. If you upload a tiny file, it'll almost be negligible, but if you upload a movie, then it changes a little bit.
Yeah, sure. That makes total sense. And I guess as long as you're sort of upfront about how those costs, where they come from, then your customer will self-select for the extra added benefits that you guys can provide. It also, to some degree, allows artists to expand their possible repertoire of media. If you are an artist that is very considerate to how these creations are stored and kept, this platform potentially widens the scope of what I can do, whilst also maintaining my ability to ensure that my creations are stored in a particular way.
Yeah, I think the long-term vision is, at least as much as I understand it, is that the idea is that this is the way that everything should eventually be, and we're just sort of trying to be first to market. But I know that as a company, we are generally in favor of everyone getting on this board with everything being on chain, so that eventually you don't, as an artist or as a collector, you don't have to sift through all this information to make a distinction. Is this one on chain? Is this one not on chain? Is this an important decision? Do I have to weigh the cost benefits of how much I'm paying versus storing stuff on IPFS? And all of this should be something that is eventually taken out of the decision-making process for everybody, that and setting some sort of standard protocol where the default assumption is correct. Everyone is storing everything on chain where it's supposed to be in some form or function. I mean, I don't think anyone's saying we have like the exact perfect solution, but trying to push the ball in that direction so that when a new artist comes to the scene, they don't have to like become a developer or speak developer language in order to understand, what the best option is for them, which I think for a lot of people, especially artists without, who aren't crypto native and don't have tech backgrounds, is a fairly significant hurdle at this point.
I guess to do that, to give you guys the best possible shot of achieving that, you need a certain sort of sustainable business model underpinning it. How does that look like? How do you sustain the business?
Yeah. At first, I just want to say that I totally agree with what Ryan was saying. I mean, that really is the goal here. We're not saying this is this isn't the end zone by any means. This is what we have that we feel is maybe a little bit better than some of the platforms that were created 6 months or a year before ours were. And ideally, everybody sort of pushes in that direction. So the business model, yeah. So there's a few things that we've kind of looked at and thought about here. Like I had mentioned earlier, there will be artist contracts. So there will be we could add some sort of cost to that. I think that would probably be. It wouldn't be a large cost, but it would be a small amount of revenue. The space is still pretty small. People that care enough about this kind of stuff, that market is going to be fairly small. So there's not going to be tens of thousands of individual contracts, at least at the beginning. So, but there will be some cost to deploy that on top of the gas. We haven't really hammered in that value, and I think that it shouldn't be extremely large. We don't want people to be spamming out new contracts and just uploading every little picture that they've ever took on their cell phone for the last 20 years. So, I mean, that would be one of our ways to disincentivize that. But so that's one piece. The other piece, when you upload your file, we're going to be calculating the size of that, and depending on the size of that, we'll be attaching a cost to it. Part of that is to pay for the Arweave storage, and part of that is revenue as well. And then the last little piece of the puzzle would be sort of the marketplace fee. So, ideally, people see what we're doing, they like what we're doing, we onboard, and by no means do we need people to commit to just the InfiNFT platform. I mean, we don't care if you want to use every platform in the world and just find which one works best for you. But our plan is to sort of really make sure people understand what we're doing, make sure that they think, see this as sort of the best solution at the time, and we'll have some sort of marketplace fee where we're, taking a little bit off every transaction that goes on our marketplace, which doesn't exist yet, but it will.
Are you putting in a part of the metadata where you can set your artist's fee, and the artist can choose it before they mint it, or at point of minting it, and then other marketplaces can read from that and then decide to participate in that model?
Yes, yeah, that's exactly right. So we've got a royalty data field and the royalty address field. So that gets filled out. Right now, I think it sets it automatically to whoever mints it. That's who is the artist address, and then the royalty percent field itself is input by the creator. So that way, right now, I think some of the other platforms have handled it more, where it's just a blanket 10%. Here, as you mint each token, you can say this one is a 3% royalty, or this one's a 20% royalty, or you do it actually by tokens. So part of what we're doing, our marketplace will honor those royalty fees. Getting other marketplaces to honor it is going to be sort of more of a social push. So right now we can put a 10% royalty fee on the token, and if you sell it on OpenSea, nothing happens, right? So really, that's something we're going to have to work with all these other platforms on and say, hey, if you're selling our tokens, can we sort of honor this royalty percentage metadata field that you can read from our contract by the token ID? That piece will be a little bit of a challenge, but it is something that we intend on sort of pushing out and rolling out.
Yeah, interesting. One of the concerns, or one of the things that I thought of initially when you think, people can just put anything they want on chain permanently forever. Like, what happens when you get a bad actor that comes along and decides that they want to put some nasty stuff online that shouldn't be there and that you don't want on your platform, and they've minted it and then it's there, and what happens then?
So, yeah, I mean, this is something that we have talked about a bit. Originally, after the alpha launch, before we got to the first public launch, I had wanted to push out a solo contract that allowed anybody to mint, and it would have been, I don't know, InfiNFT public version 1 or whatever. But ultimately, we stepped away from that because of what you're saying right now. There's just really no way to prevent that and curate that. So I think with us going with sort of the artist contract model, really that liability it starts to fall towards the creator, the bad actor themselves. If you're uploading illegal copyright content or illegal content anyway, you own that contract. You're the one that uploaded it. I imagine that marketplaces on their front ends will block that. But there'll be some curating on the front ends of that. Like OpenSea is not going to let probably a pornographic image just sit on their servers. They probably would choose to block that. But also the bad actor themselves would be the one who we feel would be liable for making sure they're not uploading illegal content.
Okay, so are you're curating who is allowed to use the platform? So you're onboarding artists, and then they're sort of free to do what they want, rather than it's just open to the public.
Yeah.
From the get-go.
It will be open to the public. The initial rollout is the alpha artists, and then the public rollout will happen shortly afterwards. I believe. You can correct me if I'm wrong, Nate. And then people will be free to essentially destroy their own lives by uploading like illegal material or whatever. Is that's generally the direction I think this is headed? Correct me if I'm wrong, Nate.
Yes. Yeah, I think that is the general idea here for sure. We won't have really a public thing. I've been not really committing to this date, but I think that we're probably at least a month out after the alpha launch before we're really ready to allow people in the public to mint what they want. And we've got the artist contracts. Creating those is something that we've tested and can do. Really, the dynamic APIs that we've got to make on behalf of all these contracts is a piece that we think we've solved the puzzle, or we've solved the problem for that, but I don't know that we've actually built that yet.
Okay. So you guys have got a really impressive lineup of artists on board for the alpha launch. So yeah, Rizzle, what was it like? Was it easy sell to them? Was everyone just clawing to get in?
I actually can't take credit for that. That was all Nate, working behind the scenes, getting these artists on board. But I can tell you like what the general reaction has been, and it has basically been like from everybody else, like how come we can't get on board and everything. So I feel like the artists who are on board for the alpha launch and the artists who like really understand why this is important are sort of like a pretty tight-knit crowd. There you got to have like a significant amount of overlap in terms of like artistic talent and like technical knowledge to really be like a super fan of this product that we're pushing out. But the people who do understand the significance of it are like sort of like, freaking out over the potential of this and the way that this will, sort of push the space one step farther. Specifically, people like Giant Swan, I know, is stoked. He's able to mint his first 3D piece of art, and I feel like it's generally agreed upon that the white space in the virtual reality realm alone, let alone like the virtual reality art realm, is very much wide open. And so, I'm sure we're not going to be the last person to allow people to do that, but trying to stay on the forefront of that and give people like him who are just like super talented, a couple extra options to continue to push their art forward. And then the other, like, I didn't realize when before talking to Nate and Jim that this was going to be the first platform to mint MP3s, which seems like such an afterthought. Like that should have been something that should have happened like way at the beginning. But that is another thing that I didn't even realize we were out in front of, because MP4s are already a thing like almost everywhere, but somehow you can't, they can't walk it back a step or whatever. I don't, maybe it's way more complicated than walking it back a step. I have no idea. But it seems like something that should have been done before. And I've been, as someone who's been on the front of like the PR marketing end of this whole venture, that sort of caught me off guard as one of the things that people are most excited about. Because that just opens a lot of doors to sort of uncharted territory. I feel like the minting music has no one's really stuck the landing properly. And maybe it's just because we haven't given musicians the correct tools to work with. So this is one more thing that's sort of pushing the boundaries of NFTs and spreading that outwards more, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Oh, someone's going to have to build a platform where you can listen to all the decentralized minted MP3s. Yeah, because OpenSea, I think, is probably you're not going to go to OpenSea just to listen to it, are you?
I've been playing around with an idea for a little while about being able to offer people the chance to listen to a song for the first time. So it's like you are the very first person in the world that that's ever heard the tune. And you get to keep that experience. Then everyone else, listens. They can download it, so on and so forth. But you get the NFT that shows that you were the first listener, and that could get pretty cool. It's pretty cool anyway. But I think it could get really interesting when these artists get much bigger. And that's the kind of thing that this kind of system could allow for. Entirely new experiences with music, like everything. I come up with. Well, I'm sure I'm not the only person to have thought of that, but and I can't execute anything, so I just kind of blurt it out on podcast. But if someone's out there, you should do it, because I'd do it.
Dude, totally. Dude, that's an awesome idea. I mean, that never even occurred to me, but that's like a great example of like, we're just trying to put the tools in the artist's hands and let them run with it, and who knows like what they come back with. Totally unexpected stuff, but that is such a cool idea and people come back with stuff like that, and I'm like, how is that not already a thing, right? Like, you're basically selling like 10 experiences of the first listen. That's absolutely a collectible item that I would want from like a musician that I follow. Absolutely. So yeah, man, great idea.
Cool. You add that one to your list, Nate, of things you need to make.
Definitely.
Yeah, dude, do you play any music? I'll buy your first experience.
Well, we're thinking of redoing the Gerbils theme.
It needs a refresh.
But with us playing all the instruments as well.
Yes. There you go. Mint 10 copies for your first 10 listeners or whatever to experience it.
We'll host it with you guys, that's for sure.
Yes. Yeah. Now we're talking.
Nice.
Well, it clearly needs to last forever. Most definitely. Oh no, that sounds super interesting. We'd definitely be interested to find out more about that at some point.
We were thinking, we had a sudden thought earlier when we were thinking, the launch of InfiNFT on-chain gerbil, and you could just picture a little gerbil sitting on a chain, like, yeah, this is me, I'm here.
Again, our creative juices were flowing. What can I say? Coming to a blockchain near you. We'll work on that one.
Yeah, that's where our minds go first. It's what does that look like in gerbil form?
Yes, seems like that obviously needs to happen. The on-chain gerbil.
So last week we did a walkthrough in Cryptovoxels, which was epic. you guys, your launch is happening on Cryptovoxels, is that right?
Yes.
Your launch event.
Yeah, so we're doing so Rizzle's been hosting, or him and Matthew, I guess, have been hosting the whips for a while. They get a couple hundred people or 100 people or whatever together, and they have some people talking. So I'd sort of pitched the idea that, hey, what if we did something at the InfiNFT gallery and had some of the artists speak about their pieces and maybe even just their inspiration for their work, and then we would talk about the platform some. And we just thought it would be kind of neat to sort of have some of us just talking about it while people were just walking around sort of seeing the pieces. And we just kind of thought it would be a neat experience, so we decided to do that. And that's going to be this Saturday coming up. That will be really, I mean, a lot of this stuff is leaked. People have seen the pieces. I think we had a 4 ETH bid on one of the pieces before we had even told anybody that they were there. And then, some people have found the voxels parcel. So, but we're still fine tuning some things on both of those ends.
So you're going to be auctioning the pieces off at that event?
So right now the plan is actually not to have them all launching at the same time, but that's just when they will start sort of selling them. So really all of the artists, all the pieces that the artist created are in the artist wallets. So maybe that was the wrong approach because we don't have any real control of listing them. So we're having to coordinate that through them. But I think the plan is to do sort of 2 artists a day for 5 days.
Cool.
Some of the artists have also talked about the Sunday lull in the crypto art scene, which I was unaware of. So it's kind of it's still a little bit fuzzy exactly what the rollout is going to be on that. But I guess generally we're not looking to have more than 2 artists on a day, and we're looking probably to do 24-hour auctions. We might even have one ending while we're speaking at the gallery, or at least the timing's ending while the gallery is going on.
One of the extraordinary things that I discovered at that last meeting that we all had at Cryptovoxels was how having that feeling of everyone together and like moving to a place basically to buy trainers created just a whole extra level of experience in terms of buying NFTs. I ended up buying my trainers blind. No offense to No Shot, they're beautiful trainers, but at the time I got logged out of Cryptovoxels and I still had major FOMO, so I asked my good pal here, Luke, to buy me a set. So the FOMO was so strong that I bought them blind. I didn't even see them. So clearly, I'm probably not the only one. But clearly, it adds a whole other just a whole other dimension to the group experience, but also to the actual selling experience as well. So clearly you can't map that out across all your artists all the time, but you have an auction ending when I've made my way there, and you never know.
Dude, thanks for coming to our thing last week and everything. It was epic, man. And honestly, totally unintended. It certainly wasn't supposed to be like a group like parade to the shoe store or whatever, but it was so cool and so awesome to be a part of. And that's actually one of the things we've been in a lot of conversation about, is how to continue to like build out these experiences and create like unique, special experiences from week to week. And Nate's sort of like underselling the scope of this like launch party that we're trying to pull off on Saturday, because it's absolutely going to be a party. And so we're trying to build on what we learned from last week and in previous weeks WIP meetings. This week we're rolling into a special launch for Skeeny and Async. They got some after thing that we're in the middle of coordinating that, but we've also in between last week and this week, I put out the call for DJs because we would like to do some sort of pre-party at InfiNFT launch party, because now with these events, people are showing up 20 to 30 minutes ahead of time and just sort of like hanging out and listening to our mic checks and everything. And so we're like, this is a great opportunity to, pipe in some music and, do a little pre-party thing at these events. So this week's WIP meeting, And so I put out the call for DJs, and all of a sudden I was like flooded with DJs, like, contacting me from everywhere. And DJ Trippy Yogi was the first one to reach out to me, who I guess is a VJ who has like a squad of DJs ready to help him out. And so this week we're going to do our first experiment at the WIP meeting. He's going to pipe in some Twitch visuals while we got a DJ spinning. We're going to play. I almost don't want to give it all away. We're going to play around with like the color throwing distribution awesome. Mechanism, and basically treating this week's WIP as sort of a training ground for the InfiNFT launch party that will happen 2 weeks later. So the cool thing about all these WIP meetings are that they're sort of our own work in progress and give us a chance to tinker around with everything, change formats, try new ideas. Our audience is pretty forgiving and recognizes that if we fall flat on our faces, it's just because we're trying. And so we're absolutely going to stick the landing with this InfiNFT launch party on Saturday. And we've got killer speakers, not just Nate, even though I love Nate. Nate will be speaking. But I mean, Hackatow will be speaking, Giant Swan, Katie Arrington, Micah Johnson. I think I'm missing someone absolutely massive.
Aiden from Arweave.
So we've got some killer speakers. We're going to throw in a party atmosphere. One of the other things we've learned from doing the WIP, especially in the last few weeks, is keeping the Discord channel open after it is over. It sort of allowed that parade to No Shots Shoe launch to occur. And so we're going to try and do something similar like that with the InfiNFT launch party, where the artists and speakers can sort of linger around afterwards on the Discord channel and sort of do like more of an informal hangout Q&A, talk about their art pieces, sort of more of like a art show launch type of after party versus like a parade or bring down the house type of thing. But we're constantly trying to flesh out these experiences. And I'm so glad you guys were a part of that, man, because it's very hard to articulate for someone who is not there, like, why that is cool. But it really was like a moment in the metaverse that I feel like is unforgettable.
I've been coming along for weeks, and I keep getting. I tend to join just before and then just after, because I'm tied up at that time each week. But this week I was there for the whole of it, and it was just such a complete experience. For anyone who's not going, you pipe in the audio through Cryptovoxels, but also you can join the Discord and listen to the audio straight from Discord, which is more reliable, and it allows you to go off and explore different parcels nearby, or to jump to a different location but still be part of the conversation. And for if Cryptovoxels, when there's 100 people and it starts messing up and you get kicked out and you have to join back again, you're still continuing the audio throughout that. That adds a lot to it. But then when we went on this, there were so many people packed into this tiny. Well, it's quite a big room, but there were so many people it felt tiny. And I was hanging out next to Jesse of BullionX whilst watching the presentations. And then going on this, I mean, it felt like a school field trip, or I kind of likened it to in Berlin a few years ago. I joined a pub crawl, and it was just like 50 of these strangers that you're wandering around Berlin with, and it felt like that, and it had that kind of party atmosphere, and walking through the high-rise section of Cryptovoxels, and then getting to this shop where these new trainers go on sale, and everyone's sort of trying to get in there for the one of five before they're sold out. It was such a cool experience. And then listening to all the chat on Discord, and really felt like a community, and felt like going on an outing whilst everyone's locked down at home.
Dude, I'll hook you up if you need something. I'm trying to clothe the masses in Cryptovoxels. So
I definitely need clothing, dude. So we'll chat.
Dude, it's really funny that you said that, because and I think more people are starting to feel like that. When I was coordinating speakers a couple weeks ago, Lily from drawing a blank on her project at the moment, but she's so awesome. But before she was ready to, confirm and everything, she's like, is there any way you can send me something to wear? Because I'm going to feel very self-conscious on stage with everyone in the audience having wearables and I won't have anything. And I'm like, wow, it's actually created this weird type of like avatar social pressure to like, get dressed up or something like that, which was not the intended consequence. It was just like, we're just having fun. But it's funny the way it's all taken shape for sure.
Yeah, there absolutely is that. Like after I spoke at the whip, I think I had like a hat was the only thing that I had at the time, and it just was embarrassing. I was like, oh man, I went out and bought like 3 or 4 things.
With you, Nate, a hat is all you need, dude. You're good.
Pants still aren't good.
I had a head that I got from one of the earlier whips, a green head, and I floated it out about 10 feet in front of me and just was putting it in random places, like in the room. And I don't think people could tell where it's coming from when there's so many people.
Yep.
And it sort of hovers and floats around.
Dude, that is like and I don't think everyone like totally shares my like opinion on this, but for me personally, the extreme weirdness of the whip is like where it's at, man. It's so unpredictable every week, and every week I feel like people are showing up. Like, a couple weeks ago, like a bunch of people showed up with like octopuses stuck to their heads, and I didn't even know where that wearable came from, but it's just so like interesting beyond like a conventional meetup that you would go to, just because it's like the audience is like a total circus that you can wander around. It's its own show in itself.
I think that speaks to the freedom of Cryptovoxels as a platform. Luke and I were discussing this yesterday, just how sort of easy and permissionless it is to join up and join in. I mean, you can just be sent a link and you're suddenly there. Yeah, okay, to get deeper into things, to actually producing these wearables and stuff, it takes more knowledge. But I think it feels like it's got the right elements for it to grow because of the barriers to entry. Someone sends you a link, say, come and check out all these extraordinary avatars. And I mean, that's a show in itself, just to turn up to this room full of floating entities with, and that's kind of sticky. I like that. The experience itself is worth being at. And then you have the content and so on and so forth. But just being there in that kind of environment is pretty cool. Anyway, we've gone off topic, but cool.
So what's next? Once the launch happens, what's next? What's the plan? And what other things are happening in NFT 42?
So, yeah, I mean, once we sort of start auctioning these pieces off, and really the whole thing, 'cause we're not taking a commission on these alpha pieces. We're just everything is going to the artists themselves, with the exception of the OpenSea marketplace fee. But really the plan was to sort of make this sort of special event, try to get some promotional value out of it, which I think we've done pretty good. I think that the launch party itself is going to be really cool. Hopefully some new faces will be there that haven't really experienced that sort of virtual reality magic that you guys are talking about. So we get that, we sort of lure some people in, and then we'll be building towards hopefully getting something that the public can use. I hate to say by the end of June, because I just know it'll take a week or two longer than that. But hopefully we'll be, going down that path, and we'll be getting there as soon as we can. As far as other projects that we're working on, I mean, the ticketing platform is something we're definitely interested in diving in a little bit more, and I was looking to sort of build a team for that. Got some people in mind, just really haven't focused the time there, and that'll probably be something that will be coming soon as well, even though that may be less exciting for the majority of people.
I can speak to the rest of the NFT 42. Go ahead, if you guys.
I was just going to ask you, Rizzle, in terms of Nate touched on it there in terms of new faces, as being sort of heading up the PR and marketing side. How do you think about going out and bringing in people who might be in crypto but don't know too much about NFT, or just might not be in crypto at all, and we need to bring in these wider numbers. How do you approach that?
Right now, we're sort of like, fishing in our own pond. I feel like, and
Sure.
sort of appealing to the super fans first. And honestly, I feel like as long as we keep doing our thing, that time will come. And I feel like it's already coming in the, shape of big players getting into this space. Topps just had their launch. I know NBA is getting in the game and everything, and they're like, going a slightly different route, but still backed with crypto and everything. But honestly, I feel like, and we touched on it, a few minutes ago. I feel like one of the big things is Cryptovoxels and these one link click throughs and people being able to not have any crypto knowledge, but just pop into an event like this and not need to have any crypto knowledge to just sort of walk around and experience and everything. And I feel like that's a pretty good on-ramp to the everyday person. And I've had a lot of conversations with people who know nothing about crypto, but I'm like, dude, would you be willing to just click through this link and, check this out and see what you think or whatever? And that's a very, very low barrier to entry that I feel like we're only going to see more of. And that's sort of why I brought up like Topps and NBA, is because they're very heavily focused on sort of getting the crypto out of crypto, even though they're crypto. So I think we're all moving in that direction. I think our job collectively now is to just position ourselves appropriately, so when that rocket launches, we're all sitting in the front seat, with the most knowledge and experience and good products in that space and everything. So, I'm one of these people who feels like this is the inevitable course of events. I'm just trying to lay the ground floor for ourselves so that when it happens, we're right there, waiting for it.
Yeah, that's definitely a feeling that Luke and I share as well. It's much like the early days of crypto. You put an address in, you press go, it arrives somewhere else. So it's like, wow.
Right. It's obvious.
And gradually those layers just build. And yeah, if you've drunk the Kool-Aid and you're down a rabbit hole, it all makes total sense. And it's really interesting actually to watch all these early communities taking shape, and also looking at things like Top Shots. We had Alan on our last episode, and it was super interesting to hear the vision. And yeah, so I guess we'll just keep getting folks such as yourselves on to tell us all about it, and we'll just see it gradually expand into the universe. And we'll be somewhere on the ship. Might not be on the front, but the gerbils will be hanging out in the cargo section at the back somewhere. But we'll be on it.
You'll be decked out in dope wearables, though. I guarantee it.
That's the hope.
Can I give you the rest of? I got more NFT 42. We got the InfiNFT.
Sure,
can I give you the
please.
quick spiel on the rest of NFT 42?
Go for it.
We're right in between the Avastars launch of Series 1 and Series 2, and so that should be rolling out imminently. And people are really stoked about that. I don't know if you saw, there was like a 15 ETH sell of I forget if it was a founder of an exclusive Avastar just a couple days ago. So, I mean, even the people on the inner circle were like, "Whoa!" Like, that's hefty right there.
That's punk territory. That is.
Yeah, dude, exactly. So, right now they're only available on the secondary market, but Series 2 is rolling out imminently. So that's the next thing on the forefront of Avastars. And then, the three branches of NFT 42 are sort of like InfiNFT, Avastars, and Token Smart.
Have you announced the artists for that yet?
Help me out, Nate. I believe they're the same, correct? Up until when does it change?
Yeah, it's the same artist through all these 5 series. So the traits were sectioned off by series and sort of grouped and paired together. So yeah, it'll be Marmo and Milky throughout these 5 series.
Oh, okay. Because I saw somewhere that Josie's doing some art for them at some point. That's quite far into the future, is it?
Yes. So that will be actually the second generation, which there's I don't know if I'm supposed to share this or not yet, but there's some talk about maybe pushing that over to Flow. I don't know if that's exactly the plan or not yet, but yeah. So Josie, I believe, is lined up to be the second artist.
Cool.
Or lead artist, rather. I think she might be kind of building her own team.
Yeah, Flow is very interesting. We're intrigued to see how they get the tokens into everyone else's hands. That's the missing part of the puzzle for us at the moment.
Yeah. So we've set up 2 nodes, and we're going to be, I guess, probably after this call, I'll be turning them on. So, and we also have some plans to maybe set up some for our friends and stuff. So that's really how we're getting our tokens.
Oh, okay. So if you set up a node, then you sort of buy into that ecosystem, and then when they're distributed, you can get some that way, can you?
Yes. Yeah, I think right now, other than being sort of an accredited investor, I think that running a node is your only really way into the ecosystem until maybe there's some sort of secondary market that leaks out on them.
Okay.
Cool. So so Rizzle, start from the top again. Just give us the rundown, and then we'll wrap up.
Sure, man. So 3 main branches at this point to NFT 42, which is InfiNFT, Avastars, and TokenSmart. And you guys probably already got like the deep dive into InfiNFT, and Avastars were sort of like in the in-between territory, in between these series, and hyping up the launch, which obviously people seem hyped for. And then the other branch is TokenSmart, which we touched on. And, we're sort of in the midst of branching out into more custom events for people. This InfiNFT launch is our first real pivot in that direction. But if you've been attending our events for a while, you've seen like sort of the natural progression of that. We've started to put advertisements in place. We've started to sort of like get speakers in the last spot who have after events that we want to funnel them into. So we're very focused on monetizing these events right now, not in like a shilly, like cram the room with advertisements type of way, but in terms of like, with a lot of these projects, they don't have a good PR marketing arm, and we feel like we're in a good position to show off something like InfiNFT or show off some of these other project launches. And since sort of kicking that idea out there, we've had a number of people reach out to us with different products and launches that they're interested in partnering us in some capacity with it. Right now it's not like necessarily a cookie cutter, one size fits all, but neither are our whips. We're just trying to sort of position ourselves as the go-to people. And some of our events have been disasters, but it's exponentially more complicated to pull these things off, even in disaster form, than you would ever think. I mean, we got 2 co-hosts, including myself, coordinating all the speakers. We got a sound guy. Now we got VJ, DJ, videographers. We got people doing write-ups afterwards that now we feel some sense of accountability towards. So it's become like an actual big production that people haven't been able to pull off very successfully on their own, and we feel like we've come into a product that we do feel like will be valuable to people moving forward. So I don't know, come to the InfiNFT launch party. We're going to try really hard. The audio might fail, but we're going to make a party out of it.
The gerbils will be there, definitely.
Yeah, man.
Don't worry.
Yeah, I think actually we'll get this out on Friday, hopefully, and so it'll be tomorrow if you're listening as the podcast comes out. So
awesome.
So where can everyone find you?
Oh man, I don't have the. I mean, I guess the easiest way to get in touch with us is probably going to be Discord. That's going to be your best chance for having sort of a real time conversation. I spend a lot of time on there. I'm guessing that Ryan spends a lot of time on there. Jim's always on there, and none of us ever sleep. So, if we don't get back in a timely fashion, it's because you got lost along 1,000 other messages. But we all try to, or at least, I'm assuming we all try to respond to everybody that messages us. So, we're all in the TokenSmart channel. We have an InfiNFT Discord channel. We have InfiNFT.com, which will link to both our Twitter and our Discord. But yeah, I mean, the best way to get in touch with all of us is going to be Discord. TokenSmart is a good way to find me, Rizzle, Jim, really anybody from the team.
Cool.
Discord.gg/NFT. You could hit me up on Twitter. I'm at NFTland on Twitter. If you need clothing in Cryptovoxels, that's a great place to hit me up.
Definitely.
Well, cheers for coming on, guys. It's been great having. This is our first 2 guest episodes, so and Nate, you're our first return guest as well. So yeah, two in the bag.
Nice.
Nice. I'm honored. This is great.
We're all about this first.
Cool, guys. Well, we'll see you. We'll see you in weird, wonderful, wearable Cryptovoxel land, and we'll hang out there next.
Definitely.
Awesome, guys. This is great.